um, objectives of this session on differentiation, what you will be learning throughout the discussion and also the presentation as well. Okay, this is what successful look like at the end of the session. You will be able to explain the key elements of KITS. Second one, monitor the use of differentiation in teaching and learning. So whatever you learn here about differentiation, you will be able to go back, take it back with you, and use it to monitor teachers' use of differentiation in teaching and learning inside the classroom. Okay, this is just to activate prior knowledge. So before a lesson, what we usually do, we want to see where students stand. Their knowledge about a particular topic. We use an assessment called the KWL chart. This is a type of formative assessment just to see what students know or what you know about high impact teaching strategies. So there are 3 columns. The KWL chart, what I know, what I want to know, and what I learned will be filled. This part will be filled at the end of the session. So your turn, and you have to fill that in. What do you know by this word, high impact teaching strategies? And what do you want to know? Right? Just put it in bullet form in your book, and you just draw 3 columns: what I know, what I want to know, what I learned. About high impact teaching strategies, just fill in the first 2 columns. Your understanding of high impact teaching strategies, what I know, and what would you like to know? Second one is what is differentiation? Same thing, KWL chart. What I know about differentiation, what I want to know about the differentiation. So once you're finished with the KWL chart, you can turn to your friend or your partner sitting next to you, and then you discuss what you know about the two. High impact teaching strategies and differentiation, and what you would like to know. And one will be, you'll be given the opportunity for one of you to give your feedback, just to present on on what you know and what you want to know about the two different topics that are there, kids and differentiation. Now it's a turn and talk session.
It's like Miss Golden today. Oh, thank you.
Eagle Scout. Okay, all your answers are correct, right? So the high impact teaching strategies, it's research based. We base all these things through research. It's culturally responsive strategies of what works best in the classroom. Right? And the second one, it provides an important pedagogical model to inform instructional practices in the classroom. We have HITS, high impact teaching strategies for literacy, and we also have high impact teaching strategies for numeracy or for maths. So the next slide we will talk more about the high impact teaching strategies for literacy. That group said it's I do, we do, you do. That's explicit instructions. Right? When we talk about explicit instructions, so there are 9 components to components of the high impact teaching strategies for literacy. Explicit instructions in the sense that you model the I do part of the lesson. It's the teacher that models. So when the children, if you think aloud and you pose questions and children would like to answer those questions, you tell those children that it's your turn. You are modeling, right? So it's the I do, and then the we do, and then the you do, which is independent practice. Most of the time when we teach, it's the I do, teacher does everything on the board, and you do. There's no we do, right? So whatever teacher models in the I do part of the lesson, you do it together in the we do, and then let children do independent practice. For most of the time what teachers do, they explain, and then you do. Ask children to copy activities or to do activities from a certain page from numbers 1 to number 20. And that is wasting a lot of time. If you do explicit instruction, when it's independent practice, you only give 3 or 4 activities for children to do, just to see whether they understand the procedures or the steps that you have modeled in the I do and you and the we do part of the lesson. Right? So at the end of the day, If you just concentrate on the I do and the you do, you will have piles of books to mark at the end of the day. Right? So it's important when children are doing independent practice, the you do part of the lesson, you go around and mark. Right? So that's why it's important that teachers teach from their feet and not their seat. Right? They teach from their feet and not their seat. So most of the time we've seen that teachers explain, children do, and they come and they sit with their phones on their hand, and when children make noise, they end up being punished because of you not monitoring what they are doing. So that's explicit instructions. The second thing, setting goals. The beginning of this presentation, I showed you the learning intention and also the success criteria, what you will learn and what the success will look like at the end of the lesson. You need to tell children or students that they are learning this. Sometimes we have 3, 4, 5 learning objectives just in one lesson. It's always good to have 1 or 2 learning objectives, one that is achievable, right? For example, you set SMART goals, right? Goals that are specific to that lesson, goals that are measurable, goals that are achievable, goals that are relevant, and it also has a timeline. Okay? So those are SMART goals. So before teaching, or if you have a lesson planned for the day, always tell children what they are learning. That is the learning intention, right? And the success criteria. So at the end of the lesson, I will be able to read 3 sight words. I will be able to read 3 sentences. I will be able to blend 4 words, right, in phonics. So those are the things that you will have to target at the end of the lesson. So at the end of the lesson, always go back to the success criteria. Ask the students whether they can do that or not. Okay? Any questions? Okay, collaborative learning. Multiple exposures. For example, if you're teaching money inside the classroom, you need to expose that where? In real life as well. Right? So multiple exposures of vocabulary words. Right? If I use a word here, how can how can it be used in another context? Right? So that's the multiple exposures of vocabulary, so that students know, okay, this word is in this context, it's suitable to use this word. In another context, we can use the same word but as a different meaning in that context. Student and teacher questioning. Most of the time it's the teacher that does the questioning. You ask a lot of questions. Why don't you give students time to question you as well? Talk for learning, you will see in morning routine. For those that are doing morning routine, your teachers are doing morning routine. There's component of morning routine called talk for learning. Have a certain picture on the board and children turn and talk about the picture. Right? So the picture, you cannot just pick picture from anywhere and put it for talk for learning. It has to have a purpose, whether it is to inform, whether it is to persuade somebody, or whether it is to entertain somebody. So those are the 3 purpose of writing as well. Right? The other one, feedback. When you give feedback, sometimes it's always negative. And children, when they give wrong answers, the other children, they laugh at that wrong answer. So when you give feedback, remember it's not giving feedbacks to parents. During parent-teacher interview, you need to give corrective feedback, affirmative feedback as well. So if you want to correct somebody, first you praise them and say, this is the right answer, this is how it is done. That is affirmative feedback and also corrective feedback as well. You don't say that's wrong, but you praise the effort that they have given, the answers that they have given, but you turn it in such a way, a positive way, so that children feel that whatever I'm doing may be wrong, whatever I'm saying or giving may be wrong, but this is another way of finding the answer. Next one, work examples, and also the one that we are looking at is differentiated and inclusive teaching. So that's the high impact teaching strategies for literacy. There's 9 of them for literacy, and there's 9 as well for numeracy. Can you see the difference?
Yes.
Can you see the difference?
Yes.
Look at the first one, explicit instruction. Kids for literacy, is it there?
Yes.
The second one, use of manipulatives.
No.
No. It's only in numeracy. So when you are teaching a concept, make sure that children use manipulatives. We've seen that for years 1 and 2, a lot of students scored good marks in maths, because teachers were using manipulatives to teach numeracy. But when it came to 3 and 4, maybe the teacher lost touch of using manipulatives. It was just the blanket teaching, one size fits all. That's why students were getting poor marks when it came to learner results for year 5 and 7 as well. Collaborative learning. The other one is real life application. Apply maths to real life, so that children know it's not only learning inside the classroom, learned inside the classroom, it's used outside as well. For example, money, shopping, time. Those are important important strands or sub-strands in numeracy that needs to be related to real life. This one is still the same. Student and teacher questioning.
Yes.
They talk for learning. Feedback is there. And then you have the variety of representations of maths. Right? So there are 5 varieties of representations of maths. So when a teacher teaches a concept, it has to be represented in these 5 different ways. Most of the time, teachers go attack the symbolic representation of maths. They put symbols. For example, 5 plus 6 equals what? You put the symbols first. You teach that first, and you ignore the other 4 varieties of representations of maths. And the last one, which is the same, differentiated and inclusive teaching for both literacy and numeracy. Any questions on high impact teaching strategies? Any questions?
Simple grammar.
No?
Simple grammar.
Yes, sir.
Just a question. So, say for example, if you are preparing a lesson, your lesson plan should have all those subtopics. That, for example, for numeracy.
Yeah, for numeracy, there's a section there for the lesson plan. there's a section that on the lesson plan which says, why are we learning this? So that's a real life application. For example, why are we learning about money?
Yeah, I think so. I've seen the lesson plan that was sent by Lab. Yeah, I think most of those parts and things are reflected on the lesson plan.
When it comes to use of methodologies, what are the teaching aids you will use, the resources that you will use, right? So it's all in there, collaborative learning, questioning, student and teacher questioning. What are the questions that you will pose, ask your students, it's also in the lesson plan. Okay? And you also have differentiated and inclusive teachings there. So differentiation is not only done for students with disabilities. Right? You have different learning needs, different students with different learning needs in the classroom. That's where you use differentiated teaching. Right? I'll take you through an item analysis. So this is where you will see how teachers can use differentiation in teaching a certain concept. So from the pre-assessment to the analysis, analyzing the questions, and then to the learning and teaching program, the LTP, learning and teaching plan. So we will do that, and also I'll request Lar to model a lesson where she will use differentiation, so that you know it's not a hard task to do. It's just teaching, but you, the teacher, know the ability of the different students in your class, and you are applying differentiation. Okay, this is what differentiation is. It consists of the efforts of teachers to respond to various variants among learners in the classroom. When we talk about variance, each student in your class has a different speed in learning, and also they have different developmental patterns. So when we talk about so when you use differentiation, it is responding to variances or variance among the learners in the classroom, responding to the different needs of the students in the classroom. So there are four areas you can differentiate in. One is the environment. You have a quality curriculum, and the instructions that you use that responds to students' variance, and the type of assessment that you use. Most of the time when it comes to assessment, we focus more on the summative assessment. We give tests, just to gauge children's understanding of a certain concept, or during media or annual, you try and do a blueprint of what was taught in term 1, term 2, and then term 3 as well. So formative assessment, we promote the use of formative assessment at the end of each unit, maybe, or during your teaching and learning time. That's where you apply formative assessment, questioning, observation. So those are the different types of assessments that you can use. Yes, there will be media and annual there, but at times teachers don't use the data to inform teaching and learning. So children sit for media, teachers mark, they analyze how many children sat, how many passed, how many failed, all these things they do, and they submit to the head of school. The head of school views, marks that they marks the examination analysis folder, and then sends it back to the teacher. But using that data to inform teaching and learning is not happening. So that's why Waddington came in, right? The PM benchmark kit came in just to introduce a diagnostic assessment tool at the beginning of the year to see where children are at in terms of literacy and numeracy. After conducting the pre-assessment, teacher marks the assessment papers and then uses that data to inform teaching and learning. So after the pre-assessment, LTP comes in, not at the beginning of the year. So you are using LTP, the learning and teaching program, according to the data that you have analyzed. For some, we've seen that at the beginning of the year, during student-free days, you are given on this week, on this day, LTP is due. Right? That should not be the case. You use the data. That's why you have pre-assessment to inform you where children are at the beginning of the year. From this data, then you do your teaching LTP. It's not before the pre-assessment.
Thank you, ma'am. Clarifying that. I think there is a mismatch with the CBU. They are telling us you have to prepare your LTP. So what I did with my school, because it was a Hope school for 2 years, after attending the Hope school Zoom, I told my team prepare weekly. Yeah. First they contacted that
The Waddington
assessment, right?
yeah.
So from after that, then in week 4 they started off. I informed divisional about that on the visit with the assistant minister, and she was shocked because I did not follow what I was instructed. All the time you have to comply. That was the word that I was told. You have to comply. But listening to your presentation this morning, I think there's a mismatch somewhere. But we are the best judges, I believe. It's good to hear from the horse's mouth to empower us to, I'm well guided into this. Thank you.
The reason why there is a pre-assessment and then there's a post-assessment at the end of the year is to see whether your teaching strategies is effective or not. You see children standing at the beginning and then you assess at the end. There's a post-assessment there. But in between there are there are other assessments that the teacher has to do, which is filling in of RPT. So what we saw, this is what we saw when teachers did the pre-assessment. Okay, they gave the reading test, test 1, test 2. Students sat for the test. Remember that you are not allowed to read the questions to the students. You are testing their reading level there. You find their reading age, where to start off from the PM benchmark kit. So the score will tell you which reading age. Some students, their chronological age is here, but their reading age is down here. So you have students, their chronological age is 10 years, 8 months, but they are reading at 6 years, 3 months. So you will see the difference. It tells you this is the reading age of the student. So I have to do something. So from that reading age, you will use the PM benchmark table to benchmark you to that kit you call the black box. It is called the PM benchmark kit. Where to start off from that box? Some teachers, they don't do the one-to-one. A lot of children, they score 45, 50. Their PM benchmark, 27, 26. That's the data they enter into families. That's dirty data because you did not do the one-to-one reading assessment.
Another question. We were told to prepare our data wall. So what does that data wall reflect?
Okay, the data wall, this is what the data wall reflects. So at the beginning of the year, teachers come in with the result of the pre-assessment and they block students according to the reading phases that are there. Right? So there is no pre-reader stage. It starts with the emergent reader. Right? So you have the emergent reader, the early reader, the developing reader, the fluent reader, and then you have the independent reader. So for children who are reading the pre-level 1 in the PM benchmark kit, level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, they come under the emergent reader. Right? That's why it's important you request your teachers to fill in RPT on FAMIS. This is where we identify students who might be at risk of dyslexia. Right? So last 2 weeks we did a session on dyslexia training. We got the data from RPT. Because students in year 4, 5, term 1, they were still reading at the emergent reader, term 2 emergent reader, term 3 emergent reader. So it's important you use data to inform teaching and learning. You will see in the curriculum documents, there's a scope and sequence in the syllabi.
Yeah.
You have a scope and sequence overview, you have a scope and sequence year level. The overview for years ECE to year 4, and then you have the 5 to 8. So when a student comes to your class, if you're teaching year 3, when you conduct the pre-assessment, you will be able to know where the children is at. Is the child at this year 3 level or not? So this allows the teacher to, if the student is not at this level, allow the teacher to teach down. Year 2 work was not mastered, so the teacher has to teach down. That's where differentiation of work comes in, teaching. You either teach down or teach it according to the year level, and then you have the fast learners where you can teach up. And teach down or teach up as well. And so the syllabi, those are the 2 things that's added to your syllabi. There was nothing as such, the scope and sequence overview. Right? So for a year 5 teacher, you will be able to see what needs to be taught from year 1, 2, 3, 4. Or what needs to be taught for year 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then you have the scope and sequence year level. So for each class, you have a scope and sequence. What you need to teach in term 1, term 2, and term 3. Right? So when you conduct the pre-assessment and you get the data from there, you will see that you don't have to teach all the strands. Right? You don't have to teach all the strands. When we first piloted the revised curriculum, teachers were asking, "Oh, we teach all?" And because maths, most of them did this. Term 1, numbers and numeration. Term 2, measurement. Term 3,
all the strands in one term.
and annual exam, you prepare blueprint. You, most of the time, it's numbers and numeration. Right? So you taught that in term 1, but you are testing that in term 3. Right? So that's why the data will tell you what to teach. Right? The how to teach it is in the guide. What to teach is the syllabi. How to teach, guide. You have the steps there. Even 5 to 8, you have the lessons there prepared for you. Right? So these are the components of differentiation. There are 4. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I have a question. You're talking about the term, the package you have to learn. Now, there's a compromise here for media and annual exams that we need to take, and we have our internal term and. So, how can we bridge these two? We don't want teachers to be overloaded with the preparation of assessments. I am speaking for my school. Yeah, I am encouraging them, my school, because I want to move the school away from that zone of school. And I'm encouraging my school to focus on term end, so that we work according to what has been prescribed. And now the ministry is saying media and annual.
So for years 1, 2, and 3, you're not allowed to
Yeah, I
give,
understand
yes.
that.
When it comes to term end assessment, term end for literacy, they have to do the one-to-one reading assessment so that they can enter that into families. And also for the reading progress tracker for numeracy, you have different modules for students to for you to use to assess students' numeracy level for the different terms. So, if you are conducting term end assessment, you can use those modules. Or do you have a
There's a possibility of taking a percentage from here and a percentage within the few weeks of teaching before media.
Before media, yes.
Combine.
Because, yes, you need to combine them so that you can assess. But for numeracy, you will see every strand is taught in every term. So in numeracy, you have about how many strands? How many strands primary teachers? It's the same right across to year 13. There are 5 strands. So the bigger strand is
Numbers and
numbers and numeration, and it has how many sub-strands?
Numbers, operation,
Whole numbers, operations, fractions and decimals for the upper class, fractions and decimals and money. And money was in which strand?
Measurement.
Measurement. They brought money to numbers and numeration. So there's a money is a substrand on its own on financial education, and then you have strand 2, strand 3, strand 4, and then you have strand 5. So that's taught every term. Some of us think, okay, numbers and numeration only I teach in term 1. And so you have different sub-strands that you have to teach. Strands that you have to teach throughout the term. That's where the scope and sequence overview for year level is very important to use. And the other thing, there's a new word in there called elaborations. Elaboration is actually your achievement indicators. Right? Okay, moving on to differentiated teaching, right? The content, so those 4 areas, when you talk about the content, it's the knowledge, the skills and attitudes from the curriculum, the product, this is the assessment, how students show what they know and can do. Most of the time it's just a pen and paper, you assess them through that. But students can show you how they know or can do a certain thing through observation, through anecdotal records. You have a checklist, just tick it off that whether the child has achieved it or not. Those are different forms of assessment. And the process, how students take in and make sense of the content. And the last one, which is the environment, which is the classroom environment. Right? Maybe inside the classroom, outside the classroom, if you take learning outside, you need to take into consideration environment as well. So if you have a student with a disability or on a wheelchair inside the classroom, how will you differentiate the environment? How will you make the environment accessible for the student on the wheelchair? It's not about making ramps and all these things, about the timetable. Right? Most of the time, this is what you will do from this time to this time. Teachers have a certain way of writing the timetable for the day on the blackboard. You can also use visuals as well for the visual learners. Right? So in your classroom, you have 3 types of learners there. You have visual learners who needs a lot of pictures, drawings, and all these things. Then you have the auditory learners, those that can just listen to what you say, and they can answer the questions or respond to whatever questions you pose. And then you have the kinesthetic learners, those that need hands-on activities, right? Practical work. So those that struggle with reading, they are very good with practical work. So that's how you do differentiation in teaching. Any questions? Now you have the tiers of intervention. Right? It comes in tiers. Same as when you are teaching vocabulary. Vocabulary, when you are teaching vocabulary, this is what we teachers do. Okay, I have a certain words that I would like to teach my children. You have a list on Monday. Have a list on the board. And then you tell children, okay, use your dictionary, find the word. The meaning of the word. When you're teaching vocabulary, it has to be explicitly taught. Teach vocabulary explicitly. Right? For example, you have a certain word, and the word is discard. Right? So when you have the word discard, have a picture as well there. That's how you teach vocabulary. 5 words. You start off with 5 words. Don't tell children to look for the meaning of the word. Right? The teacher has to explicitly teach and use that word in different contexts as well. So when differentiation does not work in the classroom, then you go to the intervention. Right? Intervention comes in tiers. You have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 intervention. So when you talk about tier 1 intervention, you are talking about it's a whole class intervention, right? Universal adjustment, where class differentiated learning happens. Tier 2, it's targeted, right? So when you conduct your pre-assessment, okay, these groups, they don't know their phonemes, right? They can read, fluency is a problem. I'll focus on fluency for these students. So it's targeted. Right? Group. Children are grouped according to their needs. And this one mainly for students who have very maybe severe cases of functioning, learning as well. We have an individualized adjustment happening there. This is mainly to do with children with disabilities who have very severe cases. This is where a specialist comes in for that intervention. Okay, one form of intervention is guided reading. When you have groups of children, you group them together to conduct 50 minutes of guided reading on a specific need only. Right? So if the students are struggling with fluency, you take that group and you practice fluency. Fluency is not about how fast the student can read or how fast you can read. It's about using, intonations. So if there's a question, what will happen to your voice? It will go up. When you come to a full stop, you stop there. That's fluency. Some children, very good, very fluent readers, but when it comes to comprehension, that's where they fail. Right? That's where they fail because you have 3 levels of understanding. You have the literal, you have the inferential, and then you have the evaluative levels of learning. A lot of children are very good at literal questions because the answers are there in the book. So when you pose questions, taking into consideration the literal questions, a lot of children can answer incorrectly. But when it comes to inferential, where children have to infer, where they have to analyze, this is where most of them struggle and they lose marks in this. So when you are conducting the one-to-one reading assessment, you will see the 3 levels there. Most of them will have the literal ones correct. And that shows the teacher if they have the inferential and the evaluative type of questions wrong, you focus your comprehension on teaching inferential, on teaching evaluative. And there's a section there for the ones that are reading level 28. You have vocabularies where children have to substitute or use a synonym to use in that sentence. Children were struggling in terms of using vocabulary to replace a word that's there in a sentence. So this is the tiers of intervention, 3 tiers. Right? Same as when you're teaching vocabulary. You have the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 vocabulary. For tier 1 vocabulary, it's everyday use words. Don't have to teach those words. It's only the tier 2 and also the tier 3. The tier 3 is specific to a subject only. For example, the word atoms, molecules, those are tier 3 words. It's specific to a certain subject only. Cannot be used in another context. Right? For tier 2, can be used in that context, it can be used in this context. For example, the word volume. When you talk about volume, in maths,
Measurement.
and measurement, volume in everyday life,
Radio.
radio.
The radio.
So you need to teach children multiple exposure in the high impact teaching strategies of the word volume. So though it comes in tiers as well. So if you want to find more about that, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 vocabulary, it's in the teacher's guide, in your curriculum documents. So it's important that teachers read the documents to understand. If you don't have content knowledge of the curriculum, you will not be able to teach the curriculum well. So content knowledge is very important. Any questions? I'll just give you some examples of the tiers of intervention. Right? If it's environmental adjustment, for those students in the tier 1, this is the whole class, universal. Display class timetable so that students know what is happening throughout the day. That's one example of the environment. For children with autism, they need a routine, right? It has to be structured. You have visuals for them, because if you disrupt that routine, chaos is in the classroom. Okay? So they know this is what I will do when I arrive in the morning, and then always reward. Right? Reward them at the end of those activities, if they have completed the activities. So having visual timetables, not just having the time there and English written there. And then what subject? It's also good to use visuals as well. There you have provided a visual timetable for that group where you use targeted instructions, and then for the tier 3, it's providing one-to-one. Individual support to access daily timetables and making a daily routine. So remember, teachers, you are given, and also heads of schools, in a classroom, you have variances of students there and variance of learning needs and speed as well. You teach according to their need. Some will say it takes a lot of time and planning, but once you know your students' strengths and capabilities, you will be able to teach well. I taught in mainstream school in regular schools for 9 years, and then was posted to a special school. I said the first time I went there, I wanted to run away. Right? I wanted to run away, and it comes with the challenges. Once you are new to a place, you are thrown into the pool, you have to learn to stay afloat, to adapt to the environment. The students that I had are mostly students with communication difficulties, communication problems, those that were hard of hearing, and those that had physical impairment as well. When I entered the classroom, they were using sign language, signing here and signing there. I said, "Son, these students must be gossiping about me or saying something about me. I will try and learn sign language." So I stayed there for 14 years up until I resigned with special and inclusive education. Once you love what you do, you will want to stay there because you are supported with how, the training that you go through, and how to teach the different ability levels and the different disabilities that you encounter in your classroom. I was happy that I was able to mainstream most of my students. I was given year 4, I took them up right up to year 6. Once inclusive education started in 2017, these students were mainstream. Most of them went to Arya Samaj and Dudley as well. At the end of they were very good students, able to read. There was a grandmother that returned at the end of the year just to say that his grandson topped the class for year 8. So students with disabilities can do. It's just knowing how to teach them. So that's the environmental adjustment. Curriculum content, like I've said, you need to set out a clear intention, learning intention or learning objective, so that students know what they are learning. You need to modify the learning objectives. Some the groups that when we did the group. No, it was this group that said modify the curriculum. We cannot modify the curriculum. The curriculum is the same. This is where you apply differentiated teaching. Differentiated teaching. Students in mainstream school, in regular schools, the curriculum that's used there is also used in special schools as well, but at a much slower pace compared to regular schools. And then for Tier 3 students, when it comes to the curriculum content adjustments, they have individualized education plans. Right? So they have plans for each student that is in the class. They have a certain education plan. This is where teachers, at the beginning of the year, there are different parts to the education plans where the teacher and the parent and the student fill in part 1, which is enrollment. So all the questions about the development of a child is in there. Right? Then part 2 is where you have an interview with the parent. This is where you get all the information about the child when he's at home. And then there's another section where you have the interview with the student. Ask the student what they would like to become when they grow up. They'll tell you a lot of things. You're sitting there thinking, will they be a bus driver? Will they be a policeman? Looking at their disability. But you have to try and work towards that long-term goal of theirs. And then you have the part 4, which is the individual education plan, where your goals are specifically targeted for their need only. Okay, the instruction, the delivery, you select different resources to suit different learning preferences. For example, counting blocks, right? Activity sheets or computer programs. Some of us will think, why can't we always all give activity sheets for them to do? Right? Because children have different preferences of how they can do activities. Some can use manipulatives. The first ones you can give them activity sheets. Those that are computer literate, they would like to use those. Right? So those are the preferences when it comes to instruction, delivery, and process. For Tier 2, you use manipulatives to remodel and discuss ideas. So whole class, and then you bring the students and you model the concepts, maybe using manipulatives. And it also will help learners who are working out of phase. So you have out of phase learners inside the classroom. Like I said, you have the scope and sequence. Teachers will know the gap in learning. Right? So if the student is in year 5 or year 4 and is not functioning at that level, you will see there's a gap. That means he or she has not mastered maybe some of year 3 work, year 2 work, or even year 1 work. For this one, when it comes to Tier 3, they use specialized resources targeted to student-specific need to learn. For those students that I had, when it comes to this, the resources, they are specialized resources. For example, have communication boards to aid communication. So when the student wants to visit the washroom or wants to eat, points to the pictures that are there on the board. Okay? And you teach them to not only point to the pictures, but to point to the words. Right? So for example, I want to go to the washroom. May I go to the washroom? So the student will point to those. And then there are those whose parents have a lot of money, they use tablets, iPads to aid in communications as well. And just the last one before I request Madam La to take us through a differentiated study learning. The last one is the assessment product. It provides students with options on how to present the content, such as can ask them to present what they have learned, maybe through a report, a PowerPoint, a poster, make them draw what they have learned for those that can draw. And for those that cannot write, oral presentation. So these are the different ways you can assess children's level of understanding of a concept that you have got. You give them opportunities to present, so that you can assess in these different ways. For targeted, for example, you are trying to teach in phonics, you are trying to teach 8 phonemes. When it says fewer accessible outcomes, you're teaching phonemes for the whole class. When it comes to the targeted, you only make them learn maybe 3 or 4 of the phonemes, of the whole 8 phonemes you're going to teach. So just fewer accessible outcomes or alternative outcomes based on the student's pace of learning. So sometimes you prepare assessment papers, you know your students, but you teach here, you do differentiated learning here and there, but when it comes to assessment, it's the same thing you are giving them. And that is not fair. Assessment is not fair. And here it's according to the students' individual education plan. For this slide, I know you've gone through this slide with Madam Sita yesterday. Just recapping on this, the difference between learning difficulties and learning disabilities. Like I've said, I had a case where I had to verify. I was in year 6. Only went to school, term 1, term 2, ECE, and then the parents were separated. So when she returned, this year she was put in year 6. So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, Sintila Ngone. And they are making fun of the students in a class, even the teachers are branding her as a non-reader. So, emotions comes in. She's always angry and punching boys and girls every day. So when she came in, I told her to sit down, because she'll be, after I have a conversation with a student that was sitting just opposite me, that will be her turn. She said, and she told the student, go to the classroom. That boy stood up and went. Right? So I had to tell her to wait. So I called the boy again. I had a session with that student, and then it was her turn. She couldn't sit still. In a student's learning profile, I saw that she had a lot of difficulty in all the areas. Behavior, emotion, it was a daily thing, emotion. Learning general, learning specific, but very vocal student. Right? It was just that gap in learning that was affecting her. She could not read because she did not attend the year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. She missed all those. So those are the gaps that the teacher in year 6 has to fill her. In order for her to be able to function at that year level. That morning she was also counseled because she had slapped a student in her class because they were looking at her. And then the teacher, the teacher asking her to read. When in fact the teacher knows that she cannot read, belittling the child. So this comes under learning difficulties. Right? Lack of family support. And in the description for learning specific, it had dyslexia. A child had dyslexia. It's not dyslexia, right? It's learning difficulties. All these things can be solved in order for a child to be labeled or red flag as having a learning disability.
Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
and this in your same story, it happened here at Commander. I was taking year 1. A boy, 8-year-old boy, was sent to be enrolled in year 1B. He was placed in 1B. 8-year-old boy. So he sits in well with year 1, and what the problem he did was bullying other children because of the age. What is the best way? That way, we tried our very best here to fill in that learning gap that he missed. So what would be your advice if we come across those situations in our own schools? Sometimes there are the movement of families and they have problems that stop this kind of children to be enrolled, and they enroll in late. Another example would be from MBSN. The mainland Chinese students, they enroll into remedial English class. There's a teacher. As soon as they pass the test, they are taken right into their right class. That's for that school. What about us? We don't have that English remedial class. I'm just posing that question here. You can help us.
Okay, for that English remedial class, it's always good because the year 1 teacher is, the child is in year 1.
No, the child missed out. Was at home somewhere. When he was 6, he was 7. When he was 8, then the uncle brought him to be enrolled here. So he was taken to year 1. And I said, no, don't come to me. Take it to 1B. And was with a teacher there. So he was learning okay, but he was bullying the students. That's a problem.
Yes.
So what would be the best advice? As soon as he progresses well with the one work, and we can
Moving back to the normal class, because if not, he'll be bullying all the students in that. Same for Master.
That was the advice we gave to Master Prasad. He said he has to pass all the assessment throughout the year, then you can move. But the child moves just like that, year 1, year 2, and he's fond of doing that. I mean, just your advice to us, we may come across such cases.
So it's always good to put him with students of the same age group. What
So
the
the
teacher
learning
does,
gap
the
will be
teacher,
filled by the teacher?
has to fill that learning gap here. Okay? So that's why you have the scope and sequence documents to assist the teacher that's taking that year level to fill that learning gap. So after this, I will request Clyde just to take you through a differentiation, using differentiation in a lesson. Okay, I'll just after morning tea, I will take you through a lesson, modular lesson using differentiation. I'll just take you through the use of data. The use of data, there's only 3 slides that I can show you to assist you when it comes to using data to inform teaching and learning. Okay, this was the result of the pre-assessment for a class. the teacher sent me the item analysis for module 16. Module 16 for year 5 students. Right? They're supposed to see module 16 for 3 assessment. So this is the item analysis. So for question 1, it was assessing students' knowledge on prime and composite numbers. Right? So you will see there's 16 students altogether. Right? I have removed the student's name. I put the A, B, C, D. For question 1, nobody got that right. Right? It was on composite numbers, prime numbers. Right? And then you have question 2. So if you look at the modules, look at the maths modules on the side, it shows, for example, a letter, a number. Right? If it's M, that's number enumeration. It's assessing that that strand. Right? So that's how you have the strands up here. There are 19 questions altogether. 19 questions altogether, and the total is 41 marks. So for each question, it was analyzed, and if the mark allocated for each question is 3 marks, 4 marks, and the student only scores 1, in that, for example, this one, 4 marks, only one and 2 got full marks. So that means the teacher has to reteach them the concept again. Only 2 students got it right. Right? So that allows the teacher to see which concept or which strand to start their planning from. So this is it. There are 19 questions and it's analyzed this way. NR is no response. 0 if the student attempted the question but got it wrong. If there are 3 marks, only one of them, you'll see 1 written there or 1 right. So from this is how it was analyzed. So for question 1, row, this is the class row 16, number of students who got it wrong, 16, and the strand that was tested, and the substrand, it was number enumeration, and the substrand on whole numbers and operations. So this is the content learning outcome from the curriculum document. You cannot see, but I'll share this with you so that you can take it back to your school. So this is where the teaching has to begin. So the for the teacher planning the LTP, it has to be taken from that content learning outcome, the CLO. And you have the elaborations here. One of the elaborations there is to teach identify prime and composite numbers from 1 to 100. So in the LTP, for example, the learning and teaching plan, here, right? So this is week 3, week 4. Explicitly teach using manipulatives there, and the lesson is on page 63 to 66 of the teacher's guide. The lesson is there. The lesson is already there. What the teacher does, have to take that and transfer that to the workbook. It's just a cut and paste. There you have some copies on Moodle. So if you access Moodle, you have the soft copies of the curriculum documents in there. It's not in Canvas, it's in Moodle. So that's how data is used to inform teaching and learning. So here you are not focusing on other content learning outcomes, but you are just focusing on the students, the need that is there at the beginning of the year. So most of them got that wrong.
Pre-assessment. That can be done.
This is for literacy, this is for numeracy as well. You can do it for literacy. So for literacy, you will see that literacy in the recommendations for future development. Right? Recommendations for future development in the student record sheet. In the PM benchmark kit, you have the teacher resource book that's there. You need to know what's in that, because in that book, section 6 of the book tells you what are the future recommendations that you have to use, so that you can put it in your LTP for the different students that are there. It's in section 6. Section 5, the procedures on how to use the reading, not the kit, the reading, from the pre-level, level 1 to level 30, and the post-level 30. We did the assessment, like I said, for the secondary school students. Year 9, most of them were still reading at the pre-level stage. Level 14, some even cried, right? Those that came in from primary school and couldn't read because the other students in that group were reading level 2, 3. He cried because he couldn't read level 1 or even identify the phonics. So this PM benchmark kit is also used for pre-assessment in secondary schools as well. So please, the resource book in the PM benchmark kit for the primary school teachers, the resource book that's in there for the teachers, you can photocopy it and give it to the teachers, section 5 and section 6. Because in section 6, it tells you what you need to explicitly teach for the recommendations that you put down in the student record sheet. We've seen that, teachers are saying it's very hard, right? And all these things, it's important that we read. When we buy something, you are given the manual. That's the first thing you read. You take out your phone, you buy a new phone, you think, how do I operate this? And for us teachers, this is our manual. And you need to understand the curriculum documents. And so that's how you plan teaching and learning. In a pre-assessment. Not before, I'll give you a soft copy of what to do, first when it comes, because the item analysis is in families. That's where you get your item analysis from. The spreadsheet, Any questions? Any questions before we go for morning tea?
Yes, I just want to thank you. I think all our doubts have been cleared this morning. For me, to be honest, we keep on reviewing the LTP here. I told my teachers, just know your students. We want week 2, and then week 3, the Wellington, So I came for that LNN, and then I was told the data wall. We were told the data wall, so I quickly did the data wall, and from there then we worked out. And then thank you to Mrs. Nanda. She had been disseminating information on the Google Classroom. So that's where I picked the LTP format, and I gave it to the teachers, and also the explicit teaching lesson plan for both literacy and numeracy. It's there. All we have to do is forward our email addresses to Mrs. Nande so that we are into that Google Classroom.
Yeah.
Here. And hearing from you this morning, the things are just getting clearer now. And I think you were supposed to be in CDU. Yes.
So that's how, yes, ma'am.
Madam, I completely agree with what Madam Open is saying because for me, this is how I take it as a high school teacher and somebody who is not into the field of literacy, but into government. When I reflect all